going to continue our Ramadan conversations. Our next guest is someone who wants to talk to us, Ruveyda, about time. She has
How
a quite
exciting.
interesting take on. Yeah. I'm especially looking forward to hearing what her perspective is about these times and what they mean to us, and how we might choose to see this time. Her name is Sumayyah Sadiq, originally from Nigeria. She has, I should warn you, a truly rich CV. Psychotherapist, counselor, life coach, speaker, entrepreneur, poet, award-winning writer, author of several books and various literary works. And I haven't even touched on the fact that she's a wife and a mother, CEO of ComExtra, which is a communication counseling and creativity firm, and managing director of her private counseling practice called Due Counseling. Sumayyah has designed and delivers to this day a self-awareness, a personal and professional development program. It's titled beautifully Aspire. And she does it both in Australia and overseas. And finally, at the bottom of the CV, it says founder and CEO of FITRA, which is a non-for-profit organisation in the state of Victoria. And she has and continues to work with individuals, with organisations, and serves in many capacities in a number of different community groups. Sumayyah, you're remarkable. Even to survive getting through that CV was a challenge. But thank you for joining us. And Ruveyda's got questions galore for you.
Thank you for having
Welcome.
me. It's really great to be here.
Sumay, it's a pleasure to have you here as well. And, listening just to that introduction was quite, I guess, awe-inspiring, but we'll definitely get to hear more from you and see that seep through the beautiful advice that you'll share with us. I guess my first question is, with your load of experience and with, those titles to your name, we are going through some challenging times, and at times it's been identified as extraordinary, unprecedented, unique. But what is your approach? I mean, what is that's so striking to you about these times as extraordinary?
Loss. I mean, it's almost counterintuitive to say that loss is extraordinary, but then when we think about it in the context of what we're experiencing at the moment, there's some unity in the experiences of loss that we're having, of course, to different degrees and being experienced in many different ways. But a lot of the losses covers things that we haven't had to negotiate before: loss of normalcy, wealth, health, even mobility, a sense of connectedness, just a whole range of things, our freedom, our connection, a lot of things that we took for granted, that we've always just taken as ease, just now having to rethink because of all the losses. And that's what makes it quite remarkable. And it's not just about something that one group of people are experiencing and another group are just kind of looking on worldwide. That's another thing that makes it extraordinary. So I find that particularly interesting, and at the same time, definitely a lot for us to unpack from that.
Sumayyah, with what people are going through, as you touched on, the health issues, the disruption to their daily lives, what are the positive things that we can draw out from this, as we've already seen, difficult period of disruption?
So the word positive often tends to create this picture of sunny skies and no worries in the world, and you just basically just skipping along on the road and you don't have anything to worry about. And yet again, there's no way you can talk about positivity without what I put in quotes as negative as well, because without one, the other cannot be. And so that brings us to that idea of the duality of life as we experience it, whereby we have some of these experiences that is taking a lot from us, and yet at the same time is giving us so many opportunities to give us a lot back. And I don't say that lightly, because like I said earlier, people are experiencing all forms of losses, and it can be very difficult to see anything good about the time when you've lost your job, you can't feed your family, and your dignity is at stake. And yet again, it may also be that may be that opportunity to come closer together as a family and find new meanings in being together. So that's the part about it that presents those opportunities, and it's going to be different from person to person.
Definitely. And I guess the overall experience can be shared, but how it impacts the individual is different. However, we often hear that this is a time when we come together. This is a time when we unite in our forces. And we've seen extraordinary, acts of unity in our community, which has been inspiring. What do you think in terms of these times that we're currently going through? What does it require from each of us, from us to each other, in terms of helping one another, contributing to our positive, I guess, progress out of it? How can we truly be in it together?
I think instinctively people are drawing from some of the innate nature of being their brother's keeper, of looking out for one another despite the difficulties that we're experiencing at the moment. So one of the most important things that we can definitely look at is start within yourself, look within, because there's a lot of good in there. The other thing that is very important from all of us is for us to be here now, to be present here now, because what we used to know for the most part is no longer what we now have. And what we're hoping to get, we're not even there yet. So what we do have is here and now, whatever that might mean. The other thing that is very important is learning to sit with the discomfort of just everything that is going on, being able to understand that this is a difficult time for a lot of people, and learning to sit with it, because sitting with it can help us process it a lot better than trying to avoid it or push it away or deny it or pretend that it's not the case. The other thing that is very important to keep in mind is just being able to give ourselves permission to be, being as is. We've heard a lot of people putting a lot of pressure on, oh, come out of this pandemic and you've become the greatest painter or the greatest baker or something. But giving ourselves permission to be as is what is important. Do you at a pace that you can do you. And then one very important thing is just taking comfort in that, in our shared discomfort, that idea that we are all in it together. And again, I don't say this lightly, because I know that everyone is experiencing it to different extents. And so I cannot assume to know what it's like for some families that may not even have had a full meal today, and I've had, definitely plenty to eat. So I'm not taking that lightly. And yet again, just knowing that in my reality, there's some discomfort that I'm experiencing, and in yours, George and Ruveyda, there'll be things that you're going through that will also be very related to you. There's some comfort in that I'm not alone. And then finally, and very importantly as well, there's this idea of sharing love. And yes, for some people it's all airy fairy and you're like, oh, what's this about? And yet, one of the most fundamental capacities we have as human beings is the ability to love. And what that brings to mind for me is a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of God be upon him, where he was talking to one of his companions, and he would say to him first, I love you. And when you hear someone start a conversation with I love you, you perk up and you're like, I want to hear what you have to say to me. And then the Prophet said to him, I love you. And he said to him, after every prayer, always remember to pray, oh God, help me in remembering you, in being grateful to you, and in worshiping you beautifully. And I feel like that sort of encompasses a lot of the messages that we can give one another. Because when we remember God, it helps us to stay grounded. It helps us to have faith. It helps us to have trust in Him, that no matter what happens, He's got our back. No matter how difficult it gets, we can rely on Him. The other part is being grateful helps you to have perspective, helps you to stay humble, and helps you to be generous, to give of yourself. And then the third part, which is worshiping Him beautifully, really does talk about not just our relationship with God, but the relationship we have with one another, our ability to live with integrity and to live on purpose and to live with each other with dignity and respect. So I feel like that can really help us to draw from at these times.
It's a beautiful
Sumayyah,
take on it.
It is a full take. And like your company says and what your program Aspire, I love people who have a fight, who have a resilience, and who want to be the best. And not every one of us is driven that way. So I understand the socioeconomic challenges in the communities that are seriously challenged. Our heart goes out. We have friends of ours of this program who are doing as many as 1,000 meals a day, providing for the very many people who are seriously struggling. And I said to him, what is the worst out doing this? He said, the worst thing is that we know only of 1,000 people. There could well be many hundreds of others, but they're too proud, or their culture challenges them to say, I need help. So is there a message that we can give to all of the community, to those who are struggling, to put aside, if it's possible, not their pride, but because that's a very special thing, but to help them to be a little more resilient at this very difficult time?
Well, I think one of the most important things to really focus on this time is to understand that nobody chose this. Nobody chose this. These are things that are beyond our control. And our ability to see it that way can help us feel a bit more receptive to anything that comes in form of help. And of course, the people that are helping, we always want to make sure that we respect the dignity of the people that we're trying to give and to help. We don't throw things at them. We don't give them leftovers. We don't give them just things because we think that's what they deserve. We give them from the best of what we have. And I think that really helps. And everyone should also understand that we all need help at some point or the other, in some way or the other. And some people's needs might seem like really, really obvious, and some are not, but everyone needs help, every single person. And I think that being able to see it that way can help us to understand, to be compassionate with ourselves, and to get the help we need.
Beautiful.
Well
That's
said.
what a
Ruveyda,
community is.
I was going to say, Ruveyda, isn't it amazing? Sumayyah has not mentioned one thing about cooking or making a wonderful meal for us when we get through this COVID-19 pandemic.
I
And
think
I
she
haven't
just
even
wants
mentioned
to.
lasagna. And I haven't
I
even
think she
mentioned
wants.
lasagna yet.
I think she wants to keep the guest list short, George. If we open it up to
Oh,
the public,
right.
look,
Yeah.
we've got to get a special piece for ourselves.
I should explain to our audience that doesn't know. A little earlier, when we had a test to find out that the audio was working with Sumayyah, she gave us a clue that she loves doing a whole bunch of things behind the scenes. And one of the things that she's done is she's learnt to cook a great many dishes, not only the native dishes of Nigeria and Africa, but she's learnt this Eastern treat called lasagna, and she makes a mean lasagna.
Can't wait.
So
Yes.
we want an invite.
Yes,
We want an invite.
I was sharing with George and Ruveyda a little earlier that I knew a lot of meals before we came to Australia. But one of the things that I got quite excited about was my ability to make lasagna. And from the first one I made that looked like cardboard pieces to some of the mean ones I make now, even if I say so myself, George has twisted my arm for an invitation for dinner. And Ruveyda, you can come along. But I did say that I would include some Nigerian jollof rice as well. So you have to have the both.
That's it.
I mentioned it to my wife, and she's already locked in. So, Sumayyah, thank you once again for being not only beautifully spoken and giving us a very special perspective. We trust you have a magnificent final week of Ramadan, and also we wish you every success in business and in all your community work. Once again, thank you for joining us. I hope we do it again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a privilege to have a place to speak and to be heard, and hopefully to give benefit and be benefited as well. So thank you for having me.